Okay, hello.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Stephanie,
Oh, yeah, and I'm Jeff.
and we are doing a podcast in which we are watching Supernatural, which is one of my favorite shows, and I am bringing this guy along for the ride who has never seen it.
Uh-huh.
However, there's a catch, and we are doing a season for a season of Supernatural for a season of his favorite show, which I've basically not seen, which is Star Trek.
That's right.
Yes.
So we're 9 episodes in already.
Is this episode 9? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Episode 9,
And-
entitled Home.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Original air. Before we jump into it, let me do the
intro
thing.
it. Let's go.
Original air date, November 15th, 2005. Written by Eric Kripke. Obviously, this is part of the reason why it's amazing. And directed by Ken Garotti. Don't recognize that name, but the synopsis is that Sam is haunted by a vision of a woman trapped in his childhood house and convinces a reluctant Dean that they need to go home. Upon arrival, they meet the woman in Sam's premonition, and she reveals that the house is haunted. Looking into their personal history, the brothers discover their father had visited a psychic, guest star Loretta Devine, after their mother's death, and they turn to the same woman for answers of their own. Together, they discover a malevolent poltergeist has inhabited the house and set out to exorcise it, but are blindsided when another unseen spirit steps in. Oh my gosh, 9.9 out of 10. I would say no notes, but we got to talk about the fridge. We don't have to talk about it right now, but we are going to get to it.
We're definitely getting to the fridge. But not after Jeffrey Dean motherfucking Morgan.
I was about to say you got to add a motherfucker in there.
It has to be said. We've been waiting all of this time.
Man,
and he's finally here.
The man, the myth, the legend that is JDM / also John Winchester. The man, the myth, the legend, both.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that part. That's going to be a hard one. That's going to be a really hard one because he's already Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And he's Negan. It's going to be such a hard one to add in John.
Fun fact, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's the reason I got back into Walking Dead, because the governor, if you watched Walking Dead, the governor totally took me out of it. He was such a horrible, horrible character, and I just got so sick of him, I just stopped watching. But then my little brother had kept watching, and he told me, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's on it. You should really, you should get back into it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it for Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And I am glad I did, because Negan was amazing. And then there's some other things that happened that I wasn't happy about. It kind of fell off for me. But regardless, happy that I watched it for Jeffrey Dean Morgan, because he was great.
I feel like we need a Jeffrey Dean Morgan counter in this episode, because it's going to happen.
Well, you can't ever say Jeffrey Morgan. That's weird.
No.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Absolutely.
JDM.
Yeah, I think that pushes up to about 19 so far in the first 3 minutes. But I'm not mad about it. I'm not even embarrassed. I think this is great. No, this was, you were super excited when we got into this one.
I love this episode. It's one of my top favorites.
It's so good. It checks so many boxes of what I've been saying on the first watch for the last 8, and what you've been saying of just wait.
Yeah.
Because it's outstanding. This was a really, really, really good episode.
Yeah. Again, 9.9 out of 10, almost no notes.
100%. I have a lot of notes.
Well, I mean, one note meaning one critical one.
Yeah, one critique, and we're gonna have fun with that one for sure. Because we spent some time on that.
Okay, well where should we start? Do we go beginning to end, or there's so much to cover?
Well, we already started with Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah, so that was the end.
We could spend the whole rest of the episode talking about that. I love that they went back home. I love that they went back to their old stomping ground, because it changed the dynamic of everything. You get professionals that do their thing, but then they go back home. It always changes how they do it. If they see people that they already know, they can't continue to be the professional that they always have been. And I thought that was such an amazing dynamic, and they really leaned into it, because they weren't talking to people about, the victim or the person or the spirit, or trying to pick up context clues. They were talking to other people about their dad. And there was always the risk of being recognized. There was the risk of having something familiar. I loved it. I loved how they went into that. And it was so much fun, because everything was about their dad and stuff about, after Mary died. And of course, yeah, it's for them, it's for their mom, but they're still trying to keep up this persona of being inspectors or research or journalists or whatever it is, whatever felony they're spinning of impersonation. But it was such an interesting dynamic to watch them and make sure they didn't trip up.
Well, I mean, and Dean said it, and when they're at the gas station, of like, well, we just got to treat this like any other job.
Yeah.
What would we do? Look into the history of the house, except for this time, we already know the history of the house. But, they are trying to, like, treat it like it's any other job, but also fully recognizing it out loud that it's not like every other job, but doing their best to treat it as such, even though it's impossible.
They were leaning into that. They were trying. They knew they weren't going to do it perfectly, but they were kind of checking each other on that, which I thought was really good. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. There's just so much. There's so much good stuff here. There's so much good stuff.
It's such a good one.
It's starting off with, we finally got the combining words, the bomb dropped. Sam dropped the bomb on Dean that he has been having.
Has the Shining.
The Shining. The premonitions or whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it was like, we got to go home. I just had this dream about this lady and in our old house. And also I dreamt that Jessica died for days before it happened. And yeah, it came true. And he's just like, what?
Yeah.
he's like, you're telling me I have to go home, a place that I'm traumatized by and said I was never going to go back. Also, you're telling me that you have The Shining, and it's just like, he's like short circuiting.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't know what to do, but he's supposed to know what to do because he's the older brother.
Well, but even in this world of weird that they live in, that there is nothing that's just way out there, Dean actually gets tripped up.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I love that they made it so obvious that this is a trauma for Dean, but not a trauma for Sam. Because, yeah, it totally affected Sam's life, but he doesn't remember it. He has no idea.
And they gave that to us.
Yeah,
too.
and so Dean's all like, about this, and Sam's like, what do you, like, he's just like, he is really treating it almost like any other job, except for that it has so many implications. It's the same thing that killed Jessica, and it's their old house.
Interesting.
But Sam did not have that difficulty of going back there.
Right.
Dean was scared. Dean was apprehensive. Dean was...
he was bothered.
Like, hell no about this. Like, and Sam, I think multiple times, like maybe at least twice, was like, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
Come on, Dean. Like, what do you do? Like, come on, keep up already. Like, get with the program here. Like,
I wasn't going that far with it.
Well, in the hotel room he did,
yeah.
And then after they left the house for the first time, Sam's like, "Well, what does that mean? Like, what are we doing?" He's like, slow down. Like Sam's like all about it. He's like, "Let's get this done. I want to solve this mystery. Let's go." And Dean is grappling with the trauma of all of this.
But they had some really cool back and forth, some really great moments where they didn't just have Dean being spastic and traumatized and Sam being too young to remember. They really gave us a lot in between, I think. Dean was telling stories. He's like, okay, what do you remember about it? Like, yeah, not much.
Yeah.
I remember the smell. I remember the heat. I remember carrying you out. And then they gave that back and Sam was like, oh, wait, you carried me out?
Yeah.
Like, they really helped us see the difference of what this experience back to Lawrence is.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been to Lawrence, Kansas. Lawrence is a very easy city to miss. It's got 100,000, like 100,000 people in it now. Back then it was less. But I loved it. I loved how they played into it. I don't know how good old Eric felt after he finished writing this episode, but I hope he was proud of it.
Yeah.
Because this was just good. Like, if I had been tentative up to this point, obviously this point I'm not going to, because this really sexy girl wants me to watch it, so I'm going to watch it. But up to this point, if I was skeptical, this would have done me in. I would have been sold at this point.
Yeah.
Watching episode 9.
It's just so good. I mean, I think one of my favorite parts and one of the most poignant moments is when...
Poignant?
Yeah.
Respect.
When Dean nonchalantly tells Sam at the gas station he's got to go to the bathroom. He's like, I'm going to shove off here. It's like, I would go to the bathroom. But, like, he says it and just kind of like, all right, like, I got to go do this. And then he doesn't go to the bathroom. He calls his dad. And
flips open the flip phone.
Shocker has to leave a voicemail, which he says that he's done before. And long story short, begs his dad for help.
That hit. Yeah.
It was such a little boy moment.
But also hearing himself in the voicemail. And I know they've given that to us before, but seeing him, he did respond to that when he heard his own name on his dad's voicemail that he was leaving a message for. But yeah, once he started spilling it, you could see it in his face.
Yeah, and this is something that Jensen Ackles is, throughout the series, he is very renowned for, is that kind of either the one-man tier or like just like the welling up of like emotion coming through his eyes and through his face. And it's just, it breaks my heart for him, for Dean. It's devastating because here he is. He's 26 years old and in a lot of ways still a kid because, I mean, as much as you want to believe you're a full-grown adult when you're 26.
And as much as he's pretending to be.
Yes, and as much as he's
always presenting himself.
And he's been forced to in a lot of ways. He puts up this front for his brother, was like, all right, I just got to go to the bathroom. And then he calls his dad and he begs his dad for help. He says, I need you. I don't know what's going on. He doesn't say these words, but it's obvious. I'm scared.
Yeah.
I need help. I need my dad. Because his dad, for all we know, at least for now, is that's the only person that he can call.
Right.
He has nobody else in this world.
Well, because he has such a small world anyway. And he's always presenting his front and, on the side of a shell station. He's and that's the trauma of coming back to a hometown. I've had families moved a couple of times. I had a few different places in my world that have grown up of some kind of emotional significance. And I'm different when I go there. When I see that place, when I feel that place, even just when I know that I'm geographically there, it hits different. It puts me into a different state. And him going through such a severe trauma and also swearing that he was never going to go back there, unresolved about his mom, and now his dad's missing. Mm-hmm. Literally half his world in the last couple of weeks has vanished. Half of his world between his dad and his brother. And now he's going back. Yeah, I totally get the fear. And he sold it. He sold it.
He's just this kid. He's a kid asking his dad for help. And up until this point, really carried the mantle of just like, this is what I do. And I get through it and I help people and I save things. It's a family business. And like, I just get on with it and I protect my brother. And now he's asking for his dad help. And the devastating part about this is that as far as Dean knows, his dad never showed up for him. His dad did not show up. He didn't call. He didn't text. He absolutely ignored him as far as Dean knows. Now, we know that his dad did show up. And I think that we all know that if something were really terrible happening, like the kids, the boys were literally about to die, JDM would have stepped in. But they handled it.
Yeah.
And it devastates me for him because he's supposed to be this older brother that knows everything. And in this moment, he knows fucking nothing. He doesn't know what to do. He calls his dad, and as far as he knows, his dad ditched him once and now is ignoring his cries for help.
Right.
How that must feel.
And I love how they're pulling us into this because they're not giving us everything. And I love not having all the information. They are giving us, there's something, by the end of this episode, there's something bigger than the pain that we're seeing between Sam and Dean. And I'd say more specifically Dean in this case. You can feel his desperation. And JDM, I don't know if I can ever call him John, but he is feeling there's something that's bigger. I can't yet. Mm-hmm. I want to, but I can't. Mm-hmm. And they're pulling us in such a suspenseful, I don't know exactly what to call it, but it's this super, super heightened level of suspense. I just want to grab him by the shoulders and be like, what the fuck is going on? Mm-hmm. Why can't you talk to your kids? They were in the room when it happened. See what I did there? Yeah. It was, they sucked me in.
Yeah.
I'm done. They've got me in.
Yeah, there's so much good about this episode that like, it's hard to pick it's going to be hard to pick a favorite. So I think in any other episode, this would be my favorite, but because of all the good things of this episode, I have to give my honorable mention to Missouri Moseley because her character was so freaking amazing. I loved her so much. I loved how she was all over Dean's case and Dean's reactions every time that it happens. Just like, what? Like, what? What? Like, he's just like, he couldn't. It's just so funny.
And he still helped this lady down the stairs at the end of the day too. So, no, I thought it was great and excellent segue. By the way, that was awesome. I had to look her up because she was so unbelievably familiar, but I couldn't place her. That's Loretta Devine, and she has. I was just trying to figure out where I knew her from. Where do you not know her from? Grey's Anatomy. She was in Glee. She was in What Women Want. Mel Gibson flick from the late 90s, I think. She did Waiting to Exhale. She was even in an episode of Murphy Brown.
I have not seen any of those. I might have seen What Women Want, but...
I was say, if you haven't seen that, we're going to have to do an interruption episode where we go back and watch that movie, because that's a really, really good flick. But she's got 189 credits. She's been doing this for like 35 years. She's got 3 more things pending for 2025. Which is awesome.
She's such... I think she's a character in and of herself, that actress is. And just... I love her line deliveries. It's like, I will whack you with a spoon. And like, John Winchester, I could just smack you. I love the way how she says things. And I mean, throughout the episode, I was, talking with her in a lot of ways because she's got such great lines.
Yeah, and your spot on Mississippi accent. I could hear that.
Mississippi? You don't even know if she's from Mississippi.
I know that accent.
Whatever, man.
It's okay.
Either way, I'm not even trying to do an accent. I'm just trying to be Missouri.
Listen to.
Regardless, that is my honorable mention because she is just so good. Although I don't like that they gave her the line when they put all of the concoction bags. There is a word for them. I just can't remember the name of it. The little bags, the little spell bags.
Oh yeah.
They put them in the walls, and he's like, "Are you sure it's over?" It's like, "I'm sure," and I'm like, "Well, now she's just lost credibility. Like, what we can't believe Missouri anymore because she was sure. Like, I would have preferred her to say, "I believe so, yes," or it should be yes. I think so. Like something where like there's room for her not to just have been 100% wrong. Because then later when she says this time for sure, I'm like, but last time you said sure.
No, you're sure last time too.
So
and then all of a sudden Sam just relaxes at that point. Like, no. We've been through this already. She seems to be overly sure before she knows. No, I get that. And I don't want to burst a bubble too much, but the city, Lawrence, Kansas, right around this time, and 85,000 people, they had one, I looked it up, one psychic. Sam's running through this whole list. I'm like, wait a minute. I've been to Lawrence. There's no way this town has this whole page in the yellow pages. Yeah, exactly. It's like, no. They have 100,000. Back in 2005, they had 85,000. Now they have one psychic in that town. So, I mean, I if it's Missouri, then I want to go visit Lawrence, Kansas, because she's an absolute trip.
Although I gotta say, I love that they tied in her name like that to a note in John's journal that wasn't being carried around in Dean's jacket.
I know it wasn't in his jacket.
But he's like, he shows it to him as like, I went and saw the Missouri, or I went to Missouri and learned the truth. And he's like, I always thought you meant the state. I'm like, that is such a clever way to like give a clue to the boys. That's such a clever way.
It's a trick you can only use a couple times. If you start doing it over and over, really. Well, I went to Denver to go get a hamburger. Like, no. I don't trust you anymore. You can't wear that out. But yeah, I like that. I like it. But I am disappointed that it was not, that the journal was not pulled out of Dean's inner jacket pocket. I feel like they're throwing us off on this one. They created a consistency. But I'll tell you that this, hold on. Would you consider this a Monster of the Week episode?
No, I don't know. This is I forget what they used to call it, but the story arc. There's a way that they used to call it, like there's a Monster of the Week and then there's the insert name I'm forgetting here. But it was basically talking about overall story arc as opposed to Monster of the Week.
Okay. Do you think it was entirely the other thing, the story arc?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Because
yeah,
I noticed that about halfway through, because you could tell immediately that they're breaking out of this.
I mean, technically, they did defeat. Well, actually, no, they didn't. They did not defeat anything.
But
The
it
boy's
was
mother
defeated.
did. Yes.
This thing was, and that's the only reason I question that, is because they traveled somewhere, they found a monster at the beginning, they need to help somebody. By the end of the day, monster was defeated, they're back on the trail. It's the only thing that fits the monster of the week.
Now, obviously, yes, they were trying to like save this family, but I wouldn't say that their main aim was to save the family. Like, yes, it was, of course, because you want to save these lives, but like the underlying, like what got them there was, is this the thing that killed Orion and Jessica? Like, they are trying to solve that mystery so that they can figure out their own past.
True.
And now, obviously, the real priority is, of course, saving the lives. But, like, let's be real. Like, they're going to be hella disappointed if they don't figure out, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, if they save her and then they don't advance anything about their own story, then I get that. No, I'm with you. I think this was story arc, and I loved that part. Absolutely loved it, because, I mean, I've been screaming the time about, give me some more information. Mm-hmm. Give me some backstory on Dean. Give me some more JDM. Like, what in the world is going on? Why do we keep teasing it? And we're just acting like it didn't happen, and then they've literally gone back home.
I mean, I
thought that was great.
We've got the DVDs now, and so I will say that this disc is full of really good episodes. We got Home, and then I think the next one is Asylum, and then there's Scarecrow and Faith. Those are some really heavy hitters. Like, those are definitely some of my favorite episodes of all time. Like, there's just so many good ones. I mean, we've had some flubs, and there's been some, I really like this episode, but it's not one of my favorites. This whole disc, I could make an argument for any of the episodes. They're so good. So I'm really excited to get into, I mean, and a lot of it's because this episode kickstarts a lot of things for the overall arc. There's definitely still Monster of the Week vibes, but there's more fallout from the episode Home, and having to talk about it more. I mean, they didn't talk about it again after it happened, really, but these premonitions or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I had that note to talk about it.
Like, they didn't
It's like they finally opened up about it. They've been teasing us with it. And they're actually talking about it now.
Yeah. I mean, and so they're going to talk. I mean, they didn't talk about it much this episode because they had other things in the forefront.
Right.
But, you know, obviously that's going to become a thing. You know, they're not going to just let it die and be like, oh, well, he told them. That's all that needs to happen now. You know?
Exactly. In a couple episodes, you were asking me about my official supernatural predictions and just ridiculous things to try to assume what's coming up in the future with so little information, especially after like Wendigo, which has got no plot and point development. This one opened that up. It gave us so much more. Some of these theories, it progressed, but some of them it didn't. It stopped them, which I found it really interesting. There's an awareness, and I don't know what Missouri's awareness of them actually is. I don't know if Missouri was aware of them because she spent so much time talking with JDM in the past, or if she was just reading their mind, or I just have this sneaky thing that there's a whole world here, like an under network. You think Beetlejuice, whenever they go into the afterlife world, and there's this whole network of people who all know about each other, and then they go into the real world. There might be something like that here. There might be this entire world of people that know who Sam and Dean are. But it is interesting, regardless of where that's going, that Sam and Dean actually have allies in the psychic community, which is kind of cool. I'm not sure if all psychics are together. Again, Red One, all toy stores have the teleportation inside the closet rooms and all that stuff, but I don't know if this is a big thing or if it's just this entire underground network, and a lot of people know who Sam and Dean and John are just because of the work that they've done. But Missouri knowing who they were as they came in, I thought was super cool. The ability for them to go to these strange towns and not just be Mario and Luigi off by themselves on their own little adventure. They've opened up doors. that psychics or priests, I mean, there's this entire network of people who could be allies whenever they go to these strange towns.
Maybe.
Exorcists, pest control, who knows? There's all kinds of possibilities there that they've opened up with Missouri. I thought that was really, really cool. They're keeping channels open for better storytelling, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think Missouri knew them. I think Missouri knew them from when they were kids because he said, and you were one goofy looking kid, too.
Yeah, but she knew who they were when they came in. The last time she saw them, they were like, what, 2 and 6?
Yeah. Well, actually, we don't know for sure when John up and left with them.
That's true.
They were 4 and 6 months old when the fire happened.
Yeah, but you're not going to recognize a 4-year-old at 26 years old.
Yeah. Well,
There's something in the middle. I think there was something other than I recognized you because, John would send me text messages every once in a while, pictures of the kids.
No, I think she recognized them because she's a psychic, but yeah.
Yeah, they did give us that a few times.
Yeah.
Don't you put your feet up on my table.
Yeah. I wasn't going to. You were thinking it.
All right. So who was it? Was it Amy? Amy was the woman who lived in the house, moved in with the 2 little kids.
Oh gosh, why am I blanking on her name?
Guessing it's...
Now that you've said Amy, I feel like I'm not gonna be able to remember her name. But Sari is a little girl.
Yeah, that's right. Sari and Juice Kid.
Juice Kid.
Sorry for
Richie
too. Oh yeah. There you go. It's like you've seen this before. Okay, so do we want to discuss the fridge yet? I feel like that's where we are.
The Juice Kid is a good segue. At least you won't get scurvy.
Oh,
I think
we got stuck on it.
Okay, so
we definitely got stuck on it.
Again, 9.9 out of 10. Mm-hmm. No notes except for this freaking fridge, man. Like, okay, first of all, the continuity on it is just all over the place.
Yeah, like that's where I caught it, and you didn't grab onto it until we backed it up a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, that. But then as soon as we paid attention to it, the whole thing fell apart.
Okay, so first of all, you notice it, you don't have to pay that close attention to notice the fact that when you open the fridge, all of the shelves are out in order for the child to be able to fit. I understand.
Be able to fit, because that's what kids do.
Yeah, I understand why the shelves are out for a practical reason for the TV show.
Absolutely.
However, the way that they did it was just wackadoodle. Like, it should have been, maybe this fridge is missing shelves because it's like you moved in, this fridge is here, and it's not a great fridge, and it's missing shelves. So, in order to sell that, I feel like you only have a couple items in this fridge, like some milk and just a couple things, as if like you haven't really gotten to that yet, and this fridge is just mostly empty,
right? Because
you've just moved in, but instead you've got like juices on their sides stacked up with multiple things of eggs on the side, and then later there's a thing of eggs up against the wall, like vertically up against the back wall of the fridge, vertically, but it's not there when Richie opens the fridge.
Exactly.
It's there when the mom opens the fridge.
And the shelf is in the refrigerator, leaning up against the side,
the shelf,
which no one would ever do.
The shelf should just be gone.
Right.
Like
the shelf should just be 100%
missing from the fridge.
Right. And then you can stack a couple items. I totally get it in that case. Where the hell is the fridge in this house that we moved into? Oh, well, I'll figure it out later because I've got 2 dozen eggs for some reason, but they need to go into the fridge. This got caught because the milk was tipped over. That's what triggered this. And I noticed that the milk there was no way that the milk in its open position, like when the refrigerator was open and Richie climbed in, there was no way this milk could be down where it was sitting. Then we went back and looked at it, and like 1 dozen eggs moved from the side of the refrigerator to leaning up against the back. They did the insert shot of the spirit unlocking the child magnet on the door.
And then locking it again. It did lock
it again. She did show us lock it again, but whenever the mom went up to it to try to go check in there because she saw the milk leaking out, it was open, and she went up and opened it anyway, even though it was already open.
Yeah.
It was just, and again, these things happen, but this one was bad.
Yeah,
this one was really bad.
I think the problem with this one is that I've said this before, in the industry, a lot of times we'll say if they're paying attention to that, we're not doing our jobs. However, the whole sequence starts with him opening the fridge and it's just wide open, no shelves for this child to get into. And that's just not normal.
Exactly.
So that's like the thing that first you're like, whoa, that's weird.
The plot broke the fourth wall.
I think that if the only thing that happened was that this fridge, for some reason, was missing all of the shelves enough for a child to crawl into, I feel like it would be fine. But it just became one thing after another thing after another thing after another thing with this freaking fridge. It was just so many continuity errors and it was just, that whole bit was not well done. Now, I will say, that kid is probably 3, maybe. Which means that I think, if I'm remembering correctly, means that they only get 6 hours total with that child. And I think only 3 of them can be actually on set. The other 3 have to be like resting hours. And so it's possible this whole fridge sequence was really, really rushed because they were running out of time with the kid. It's possible. And that's what created all of these errors. Because it's like, we don't have time. We don't have time. Just go. Just go.
Okay.
Like, it's very possible that could have happened.
So I did have that question time for you, more so about just continuity in general, how it's done, who manages, who's responsible. But then the kid factor, and I know there's a lot of laws and restrictions that go into play whenever you're dealing with anybody who's under 18. Maybe there is even more so for toddlers. But start at the beginning of that. Because it's one of the fun things for fans to do is to find continuity issues. They'll find errors and problems. But then whenever you and I talk about exactly how scripting is done, we talked about previous episodes where you might see one scene, but that scene might be done across multiple days. And so who is in charge of continuity? How does this stuff get checked? And in this case, this B portion of the question, why wasn't the refrigerator just shut with the kid and just left alone? Like, why was there a moment where things changed with the kid in the refrigerator? Who moved the eggs? Why did the eggs need to be moved? So multi-part, but I'm super curious about how this occurs because it's been going on for decades.
Continuity, the short answer is it is a lot of different people. I would say that the person that is maybe the one that really keeps track of it is the script supervisor. It's the script supervisor's job to keep track of things like, when did the person take off their jacket? On what line did the actor take the jacket off? Or they were looking left and raised their left hand, not their right hand. Or any number of things. That background person came through on this line. Now, if that sounds impossible for one person to handle all of these things,
that's what I was about to say.
It is, which is why it's not just up to one person. So now so in the case of the actor and their hand and what time and they took their jacket off, the actor keeps track of their own continuity too. They are supposed to also be responsible for knowing when they took their jacket off. The director also pays attention to that. Wardrobe, a lot of people and every department also has their own continuity. Wardrobe has to make sure that the jacket is on in the right way. Is it zipped halfway up? Is it zipped halfway down? Hair has to pay attention to if the ponytail is flipped over to the side of their head because they've been running and the thing is falling out, so their ponytail's on the side of their head now.
And so real quick, some of these things can vary if they end up doing 3 different takes where an actor puts on a jacket and zips it up. The memory has to be done of this is the one take that we're doing, or they zipped it halfway up, and that's where this memory and documentation portion can get really, really complicated, other than just refer back 60 seconds of filming, right?
Yeah, I mean, and depending on what the scene is, obviously, people aren't going to be able to notice. Like, if they're in the middle of a fight, is someone going to notice that the zipper is 3/4 instead of halfway down? Very unlikely, right? But
give Reddit credit.
Well, regardless, the short answer is it's multiple people, and each department has their own. In this case, with the fridge, it would be set dressing, maybe props, mostly set dressing, and then, of course, script supervisors always in charge of it, and the director is always looking. The director has a lot of things they're looking out for, so continuity isn't on their short list. But they definitely will catch it as well. And people also, because it is such a big job, people will help out. The camera operator might say, "Hey, the notebook was on your left,"
right,
or something, like just like a quick tip. And obviously it depends on the amount of comfortableness they have in speaking up, but it really is a full team effort. Continuity is a full team effort. The set dressers are in charge of the set dressing. And for those that don't know, set dressing and props work a lot hand in hand, but the general rule that you go with is if the actor handles it at all, it's a prop. If they don't handle it, it's set dressing. So a lamp sitting on the table that doesn't get touched, set dressing. A water bottle that the actor drinks out of, or coffee, they're touching it, they're using it, it's a prop. But if the water bottle is just sitting on the table and no one ever touches it, it's most likely set dressing. So it just, they work hand in hand though. And they both have continuity that they keep track of. But the script supervisor also keeps track of that too. And the actor keeps track of it. It's really a team effort.
It is an overlap. So a seashell lamp that sits in an apartment for episodes upon episodes upon episodes, that's set dressing. But as soon as it gets knocked off the table and broken, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, but they work hand in hand. Like the prop person would be like, well, this is the lamp that we've had there, and they'll like kind of like dress like the art production designer, but be like, production designer, like I'm assuming that lamp we can get doubles of it, if we need it, it's a hand in hand. They work together.
So this highlights a huge variable of the stress and the pressure of a show versus everybody having the creative ability to watch for something. Like if they're 80% at capacity, then the remaining 20%, props, PAs, directors, whoever's can notice issues and be like, hey, these eggs were over here when we shot this before, and now they're leaning up against the back wall. But I would assume if everybody's under pressure, if there's a whole lot of stress, if there's poor management, if there's any factors that keep people kind of on edge, then they don't really have the space to notice things that would be small issues whenever somebody's under pressure, like continuity.
Yeah, and I've definitely been on a set where you're pressed for time for whatever reason, child labor laws or the sun's going down, whatever it is, and the director or whoever is just like, we don't have time. We do not have time. Just leave it. Like, there's been many, many a times where it's like, it's more important to get something than to get it right. And by something, I don't mean that, a piece of crap, but in this case, they got the shots, right?
Get to the finish line here because of
and they got the shots. They were not horrible shots. There's just a lot of continuity and weird shit happening during it. But at the end of the day, the story was told.
Weird shit outside of the script, which was already weird shit anyway.
Yeah. So it might have been that they were under the gun with the kid. And so everyone wasn't really able to do their jobs as effectively as they normally would be able to.
Okay, that all makes sense. But the one thing that I still cannot get my mind around is how it changed so much anyway. 24 eggs stacked on top of 2 juice containers on the right side of the fridge. How does 12 eggs get put up against the back of the refrigerator wall when it would seem like the only thing that's happening is you've got a kid climbing in and out, maybe repeatedly?
I mean,
how does that happen?
The second time the fridge was opened, you notice that the milk had to have been moved back, which means that all the items in the fridge had to be moved as well.
Exactly, right.
And so maybe
this is indicative of so much more happening than this piece of set state. It seems like it's a set dressing. But with all the moving around, it seems like, somebody else had to come in the afternoon and use the refrigerator, so we had to take everything out and go put it back in later. Well, obviously that's not what happened, but
I mean, those 2 shots of Richie getting in and then Richie getting out were done not all in one go. And so when they wanted to do the milk bit, they were like, oh, hold on, we got to move everything back a little bit in order for the milk to actually be able to lay down. And maybe that moving back created less space where they need it, and so then the eggs ended up against the back. Now also we have to remember there's a 3-year-old in there. Now
they're making a mess.
The refrigerator obviously generally would have no light on, but they would not have had that child in an actual locked refrigerator with no ability to get, like with it being dark. Like that's a horrible thing to do to a 3-year-old. So there was actually,
Why?
huh?
What do you mean?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Oh, stop it. So maybe the kid was mucking about in there. I don't know. I don't know. That's the real answer.
Why? He had his juice.
Juice.
No, the kid, he had 2 words, okay and juice.
Oh, he was so cute, though.
He
really
was
was a
pretty
cutie kid. He was a cute kid.
All right, so all the things that could potentially happen inside of a not really refrigerator could have just messed everything up. And they set it up the first time, and they said, okay, well, we have to lay this milk down so that way it drains out. But
yeah.
It has to lean back, so we have to scoot this back. Oh, well, we don't have time to figure that part out. We don't have time to go back and reshoot because we just found the issue later. Just make it work.
Yeah.
Okay. That has always been super, super interesting, and especially the more that we talk about it, in that these scripts get cut and sliced and reassembled so much more than I ever knew. It's interesting.
And there's a lot of times that changes are having to be made on the day because of the limitations put on production. Scenes have been rewritten, scenes have been combined in order to make sure the day could get done. I talked about it in a previous episode where we had so much wind on a roof that we had to move part of it indoors because we were just limited. And that's why there's always a writer on set representing, so that these changes can be made with, the right person there to make sure that they're implemented in a way that still serves the story the way that it needs to be served.
So the original script could be the ideal version of this.
Mm-hmm. And changes are made before you even go into shooting, because the first AD who makes a schedule will put together the best shot that they have. Like they have to, we have to combine this with that because they're in the similar place or whatever. They make the best schedule they can, and then they'll go and they'll be like, so this day and this day are not doable. Like it's not doable unless you shoot for more hours than you're willing to shoot, because there's a lot of shows have limitations on how many hours you can shoot, which is on the show I'm currently working on, no one's allowed to work over 14 hours. So we're not talking about short days here, folks. And then with that knowledge, they'll go to the writers and be like, look, you got to help us out. Like, you have a 3.5-page dialogue scene here. Can we cut that down to 2 somehow so that it does not take us 1 more hour to shoot this or whatever?
Because of timing, because of environment, because of storms coming through town, or in any kind of issues.
So a lot of changes are made even before you start shooting, and sometimes they're done on the day if necessary.
So interesting. So interesting. Okay, so we've got either Mom or you were also very impressed with the practical effects this time.
Special, or the visual effects.
I'm sorry, the visual effects. Yeah, you're right. Both were good, and they do tie into each other.
I think the visual effects on this episode, they clearly upped the budget or something, or took budget from other episodes, maybe the bug episode, and put it to this one, because I was impressed. That cord that wrapped around Sam's neck, the fire, the figure on fire, I thought was done very well. And we're talking about 2005 too. I think just like I didn't bump on it at all here in 2025. It's been 20 years, and I was looking at that. I was totally fine with it, even in 2025 standards, which I think it says a lot about them. But the figure on fire, I was curious to know, did you know that was the mom before they revealed it to her?
Oh, no, not at all. Not even a little bit. Didn't even guess. Even when he said, I know who it is, I expected it to be Dad more than Mom. In my head, Mom's gone. She has passed. She's no longer a part of this, and that's my ignorance, because everything supernatural is on the table anymore.
It's literally a spirit.
I know. But I assumed, because remember my original theory, Dad is incapacitated or he's removed from being able to communicate. And spirits can't dial cell phones. So that's kind of where I went. As soon as Sam said, stop, 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 I know who it is. I thought that Jeffrey Dean Morgan was about to pop out.
I thought for some reason that you would catch on to it because the figure had like fire around it more than it was like an actual, like, it was like kind of like this clearish body with fire surrounding it. And I thought because it was a woman figure, you would figure it out.
No, I didn't catch that.
There's like the hips.
I couldn't tell from this fire because I was looking. The effects did take me out a little bit. They definitely weren't perfect. They were good. They were really good. My assumption on why they were so good is that they worked with what they had. They didn't try to do something much bigger than what they had the availability to do, like they did with the airplane that was dancing around in the sky or whatever. This one, they were trying to, it felt like they weren't going outside of their realm, but I was not picking up Mom from that at all.
I don't think you're supposed to, but I was wondering if you would, just because figure on fire, she died in a fire, and there's a woman figure that you were seeing.
Yeah, the dots did not connect for me for whatever reason, so there was a very cool element of surprise. One thing that did take me out of it a little bit, though, and I mentioned to you before we started recording, was that Amy, the new home resident, owner, tenant, whatever.
Amy, yeah.
Until you think of something else, I'm just going to keep going with Amy. Between Amy and Mary, Mom, they look so similar that it was disheveling a bit. Because my first thought at the beginning of the episode when she found that chest, what?
Jenny.
Okay. Jenny and Meryl. When Jenny went downstairs and she found that chest that was just sitting out in the middle of the basement floor, but whatever. When she pulled out the picture of Mary, I thought they were going to, like, my initial first knee-jerk reaction is that they were creating this, like, I just lost the word. Where Jenny is somehow, or Mary is somehow, like, incarcerated. They looked so similar to me with my...
Incarcerated? In prison?
No, reincarcerated?
Reincarnated.
That's it. All right, I remember the word now. She was reincarcerated. She was down in the county jail.
I was like, what?
There was some sort of like a reincarnation or figure forming or something, because I knew something was going to have to happen, but I thought that Mom was legitimately dead at this point in time. But they looked so similar to me, and I say that saying we haven't seen Mom in 8 episodes. We haven't seen her in a while.
Yeah, I think that's because I'm much more familiar with Mom than you are. Yeah. Like, I've seen her,
legitimately, I haven't.
And so
seen her
I didn't see the resemblance, other than both being blonde and both being women.
Sure.
But I didn't. That wasn't for me. They're very different.
Well, it did throw me off just a little bit on that entire situation, and it didn't really break the story or anything. It just made it a little harder for a minute. So, what was the original question?
I don't.
Oh, if I saw Mom in the fire, if I knew that the figure in the fire was Mom. No, absolutely not. It did confuse me a little bit about what she was doing, though, because she came out. She's been dead for 8 episodes. Now she's not dead, but she is dead. But then she's fine, and then she turns around and she's talking about the other creature, which, by the way, Missouri is really good at what she does, but she apparently sucks because she said, no, this house is clean. I'm sure of it.
And they're both
there. There's 2 more in there.
No, there's still the same 2.
Yeah, you're right. The same 2.
Yeah.
Missouri's been drinking. And so they're in here fighting. So Mom's dead, then she's not dead, but she is dead, but she's here. And then she's fine, and now she's not fine, but then she turns around, and then she burns, even though she was burning anyway, and now she's gone.
Honey, she's a spirit.
Well, I hear you, but it was still confusing to me because it was hard to latch on to the status update of Mom. We didn't get much information about what was going on with her. It's just, she's here. Okay, cool. There's Mom. And then she turns around, and within 60 seconds, she's gone. and then everything gets solved, and everybody's okay. Which, by the way, this house burned down.
No, it didn't burn
and then
down
it
fully.
was rebuilt.
It wasn't fully burnt down.
But they didn't give us that until the beginning of the episode. A little bit of the storyline just confused me. That's what I'm saying. It was a little complicated. They could have dumbed it down for the dumb guys like me.
I don't know. I didn't get that at all. I mean, you didn't understand that Mary was a spirit?
I did get that part.
Okay.
But then she's gone.
Yeah, because she destroyed herself going, quote, Missouri. She destroyed herself going after that thing.
Missouri, the same one who didn't think that she or anything else was there. Do you see what I mean? Like, the credibility of how do we get fed the next piece of this story just wasn't quite there.
Well,
and I'm not dogging it. I think it was a really, really, really great episode. But I got to the end of it, I was like, okay, hold on a second. I need to write some of this down. Because it was a little bit confusing. They just gave it to us and expected us to accept it when they literally just came off of you can't trust what you see.
Well, I think it all goes down to what maybe our second baby note, which is that they should not have had Missouri say that I'm sure that this is all good the first time around.
Yeah, I agree with
because if that hadn't been the case, then I think that you could take everything she said at face value later on. But you were like, well, what? Huh? Because you couldn't trust what she said. Yeah. I just trusted what she said.
Well, outside of that one line, she was sort of our inserted resident expert.
Guru, yeah.
Yeah, she was the guru. Except for that.
Yeah.
And that had this like ripple effect through, okay, hold on, is she full of shit? I can't tell if she's actually full of shit or not.
Yeah.
But I still really liked her.
You just have to buy into it at the end there. But, I mean, what I guess... to what you were saying, it is a bit confusing why Mary, up until that point, as the spirit, the fire spirit, was just appearing and doing nothing else. Yeah. Like, there's this evil spirit that's, like, haunting this family, and she's just like, I'm just gonna appear and scare the shit out of a little girl, and then disappear.
Exactly.
Now, I mean, I don't think this is necessarily a spoiler. You will find out later on that spirits don't have as easy of a time of it. Like, it's not like there's like, okay, now I'm a ghost and I can do whatever the fuck I want. There's definitely like I guess you could say a learning curve of like figuring out how to actually break through.
Oh yeah, they established that with Ghost.
Ghost.
Oh, please tell me you've...
Oh, but that's not the same. It's a different series. It's not...
Seems like the same rules.
Well, regardless, it's not as easy as, okay, I'm a ghost now, and I can do whatever I want. Like, there's a learning curve. So maybe that's what was going on, is that she, like, couldn't figure out how to, like, get up whatever she needed to in order to destroy it. But when her boys were in danger, then, like, that, you know, became a fuel to figure it out.
Yeah, from the movie Ghost, that was kind of the source of how you got to control in this physical world that we know was the emotional portion of it. So yeah, I could accept at this point that there's a lot more to learn about the laws of these, you know, the physical laws of this realm or of this universe. I could buy that. I could buy that.
But Dean.
So then is Mom gone? They told us she's gone, and maybe I'm not actually asking. They're like, oh yeah, she's gone. She sacrificed herself here to here to here to here. But this is not the first time she's been gone.
This is true. And in Supernatural, as long as they haven't salt and burned your bones, you can come back. So
I need to start writing that one down. They haven't salted and burned your bones.
But also, any thoughts about her saying sorry to Sam?
I didn't catch that.
She said, you know, Dean, and she just looks at him. And then she goes over and she goes, Sam, I'm sorry. And he goes, sorry? Why are you sorry? And then she does her little ghost glitch thing, turns around and destroys herself, and get out of my house and let go of me.
That did not register. Just like that. The roar. Yeah. It didn't register. You're right. I kind of remember having seen it and being like, oh, but then brain did not activate to process.
And it's funny you say that, because that line, I wouldn't say, at least from my memory, that the Supernatural fandom like really latched onto it and like, okay, well, what's she sorry for? And then like waiting every episode, what was she sorry for? What was she sorry for? What was she sorry for? What was it? It wasn't. I don't think that it was something that we all latched onto as like a key or a clue or anything. But it was just like, huh.
Yeah.
Why is she sorry? Maybe she's just sorry that, like, he's having a hard time. Like,
It's to him?
we're
Yeah.
just letting it. At least I did. I don't remember the fandom getting up in arms about it, but there was kind of just like letting it be. Like, it wasn't necessarily a clue or a key to anything.
But it's an unanswered question.
Yeah, and whether it's an unanswered question or a key or a clue or any of those things, it takes a very long time to actually find out what the answer is.
Yeah, that is
like, it's a very long payoff. It's a very
well,
long
the way that they're leaving it open-ended here, they're starting to ask a lot of questions and not give us answers, which I think is great. It gives us so much to look forward to, as long as they actually do start answering a lot of them and not leaving them unanswered. That's the sin of this sin of this kind of storytelling. But that is definitely one that they've left open. Sam has some kind of special ability. There's a larger world other than just these rogue spirit, creature, folklore, monsters, whatever. It's not just these one-offs all over the place. There's something bigger than that. I don't want to call it, again, the realm of Beetlejuice, where there's a whole underworld of authorities, and maybe there is. I don't know. But they're giving us a whole lot of information that there's more and bigger to come. And that's in storylines that I've seen over and over again. Like, if you think Walking Dead, it's this one guy who finds a couple of friends, who finds a community, who finds a larger nation. Like, they keep giving us more and more into the world, but they do it by zooming out. I hope that's where we're headed. I hope they're heading into something much, much larger. There's a network, there's an agency, there's a community, there's something that the guys get into with an awareness.
What I love is when a series or something is so well planned out. And I say this with utmost envy because anytime I did writing assignments in school and they asked me to do an outline, I'm just like, I can't do that, guys. The story creates itself as I'm writing. I have like vague ideas of what I want to say or do later, but making an outline is so difficult for me. So the fact that there are like breadcrumbs dropped years in advance on a series is, it's chef's kiss. I love it. Now, there are some things where I'm like, did they know that was going to be a thing, or do they later make it up? Like, it exists now, but did they know it was going to be special later, or did they just like, hey, this thing that's been completely insignificant up until now, let's make it a thing? Or was it planned from the very beginning? Was this breadcrumb dropped in the very beginning? And there's some things that you don't really know the answer to unless the writer tells you, but there are other things that's like, oh my God, it's been 5 years or 7 years, whatever it is, and this finally is being answered. But they knew back when they did it that they were eventually going to.
Well, and some of the great shows do that really, really well. Like, if you pull it back,
This is also
they did a really, really good job of that. Star Wars has done a really good job of that in some situations, and then they get absolutely slaughtered by the community when they don't, or if they just cash it in. They know that they can't end this movie without answering the question that people have been asking for a long time, and so they give this really shitty, just phone it in answer, and they get hung up on it. The funny thing is, any listeners that are Star Wars fans, we're likely all thinking of the same thing, which is really funny. But if they do it well, the payoff is so good. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited about seeing some of these. I mean, Trek has done it. Trek, again, over the course, I went back and counted it. 45 seasons. 45 different seasons across all of the shows at this point, and they're currently producing 2 more right now, which is great. So they will have some things that'll start way back here and then pay off legitimately 30 years later, because they'll go back and they'll find the question that was never answered. But it's such a great thing. I agree with you. It's such a great payoff when it's done, and it's so fun. I can't wait to see some of these. But again, we're still way too early at this point. We're still 9 episodes in, so this is still super fresh. Okay, I did have a question about something, and I'm not sure if this is going to come across as a terrible question or not. When Missouri was describing the concoction, this dirt salt maneuver, we're going to put it in north, south, east walls on all the floors and everything. Dean takes a taste of it.
What?
And yeah, exactly. He just makes this little grossed out face.
It's like a little boy thing to do.
Precisely. But what it did for just the lightheartedness of the moment.
Yeah.
And helped us get Dean a little bit more. And it is so predictable for the stupid shit that boys do.
Uh-huh.
How did that moment get in? Did somebody write it in? Did they just have the camera on Dean at the right moment, and Dean in character decided to take a taste of this salt dirt, and they were like, okay, that's gold, we're leaving that in? Is it a combination of just the right thing at the right time? Because it's those beautiful little moments, you know?
I can't say for sure, obviously, if it was in the script or not. It could have been. I mean, it's written by Eric Kripke. And so who knows these characters, at least at this point, who knows these characters better than Eric Kripke? You know, Jensen, and you can argue that Jensen and Jared know these characters better than anybody else later on, but it's episode 9.
Right.
So at this point, I would say that the show creator still knows these characters the best. So it's very possible that Eric wrote it in there, but it's also possible that on the day Eric suggested it to Jensen to do, or I could see Jensen doing that as well. Jensen is a funny guy, and that is something I feel like that he would come up with and just be like, I'm just going to do this. Now, I think that they definitely planned on it. I don't think that Jensen just happened to do it and they, you know, it was what it was. I think that it was, you know, at some point somebody said, go ahead and do this, or he decided that he was going to do it. But I don't think that Jensen just, all right, we're rolling and go. Jensen just was like, all right, you know what, this time I'm just going to do this. I don't think that's how it would have happened.
Okay. So that was probably just a brilliant moment from somebody who scripted it in at some point, either beforehand or on the day. Okay.
Yeah.
Because those tiny little moments, they're glorious. They do so much with so little. It's such a great task that gets handed off. So yeah, I was just curious if anybody wrote that in or.
Well, do you have any other questions, or do we want to go into favorites, least favorites?
I was thinking favorites and least favorites.
All right. So least favorites. I mean, it's got to be the fridge mess.
Oh, you can't take mine.
I mean, we can both have the same one.
Oh, I feel like I have to be original. And
that's my one note of the episodes.
Yeah, that got ripped up pretty bad. So I need to have a least that's not the fridge. I'll talk about the fridge more. I'll think of something.
Oh, but I mean, I feel like we that one's, it's over. We've talked about that one.
Okay, no, I do have my least.
Okay.
Freaking Jeffrey D. Morgan at the end of the episode gets said, oh, you know, I don't, why didn't you talk to him? I didn't want to talk to him.
No.
Do you know how bad I wanted to see them? And then there's just this really, really abrupt cutoff. I've been waiting for 9 episodes, which is an eternity in JDM fandom. And then we get this tiny little, like, cut scene before the credits that gets abruptly shut off.
Yeah, it did.
And then it's done.
It was rather abrupt.
It's done. They teased me way too much to just
not until I know the truth. Done.
Yeah.
There wasn't even a lingering moment.
I know. Like, Missouri could have just been like, or anything. Or she could have read his mind or something.
Or like he, like, you know, like does that thing with like hand to face, like just stressed out or whatever. Yeah. It was like,
or he's holding wallet photos of everybody.
Not until I know the truth.
Like, let it sit for a second. No, they no.
Yeah, the curtain was drawn.
I was disappointed
immediately after that line.
I got way excited, like less than 60 seconds before, because we finally see him, and by seeing him, they give us so much information. He's not a spirit. He's not in the realm. He's not in the upside down. He's here.
He showed up. He did. His boys don't know it.
Yeah,
but he showed up.
Exactly. He was there. He was right there. Also, Missouri. Hello. She's an associate. She's keeping a secret. She's assisting in the lie. No, Missouri started this episode in one of my favorites lists.
I do think,
but that was the least favorite, that they cut it out so short, so little. It didn't feel like they were teasing us to something. It felt almost like a courteous, we have to put a chapter marker in here. So let's shove it in at the end.
Though that is good to note that Dad did show up. Dean called him, and while he didn't actually help or let his children know that he was there, he did deem it important enough to show up and be there. whether it's because he thought that it was the thing that killed Mary or because he was responding to the call of his child asking for help.
Yeah.
We don't know. Maybe it's both. But he did show up, and I think he's losing a lot of points in general right now, but he does get points because he did show up. He dropped whatever he was doing, and he drove to Lawrence to be there. And how his services, if you want to call them that, were not needed because the boys handled it. But I know that he would have stepped in if it came to that.
Yeah, it doesn't really speak a whole lot to me at this point. Who wants to see? You've got two kids who were scared.
Mm-hmm.
I would have actually loved to have seen even just an insert, a voiceless nothing, just a split moment. The first time they went to Missouri. Ooh, now that I'm thinking about this, I really like this idea. If they had gone to Missouri, she recognized the boys, brought them in, you were an ugly kid, you turned out great, sorry about Jessica, all that stuff, and then they leave to go on to their next thing. What if he opens a side door and walks in and just looks at her? And then they jump ahead, and then we spend the whole rest of the episode knowing that he's there and not helping, and then you do the cutaway at the end of the episode with him kind of explaining with their dialogue why he didn't do it. I think that could have been so much better.
Maybe. I don't know. I also kind of like how they revealed it. It's like she like walks in, it's like, that boy, he's got such big eyes. And then you're like, oh shit, he's there.
Yeah, I didn't buy it as much.
I don't know.
I mean, it was cool. It was good to see him.
He just wanted more JDM. I think that's what you're hung up on.
Always.
I think that the way they did it was each way has its pluses and minuses. So I'm willing to, I think that the way that they did it was perfect in its own way. And the way you suggested also is perfect in its own way, but they're just different. You get different impacts.
Sure. Either way, that's still going to stay on my not favorite list.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm leaving it there. In ink. Favorites.
I think my honorable mentions Missouri Moseley. So my favorite, I think, is Dean's phone call to his dad. Is heartbreaking, but it was just the emotion. It was just so. It was so heartbreaking, and for that reason, it impacted the audience. Also, at the same token, is Dean running up to that house after Sam gets taken, and he's just like frantic. We don't ever see Dean frantic. He's like, he's hurried because of whatever's going on, but he's not usually frantic, and he was frantic.
So you're going with two favorites?
They're both Dean things.
All right, fine. I'll respect it. I respect the audacity. Okay. I'm going macro with a favorite. This was the exact kind of episode that even from the description, I'm down for it. I love anything that pushes the macro. It pushes the overall story arc. I am down for it. We've talked so many of these Monster of the Week episodes. I'm like, yeah, it was fine. It was standalone, but if you cut it out, it doesn't really change anything. Most of my favorite shows are things that push the big picture forward. And you could tell from the very, very, very beginning of this one that that's what it was going to do. And I am so here for it.
Although you did say during the episode you wanted to talk about it, we can do a very brief talk about it. When she said, please let it not be rats. And I was like, yes, please, let's not let it be rats. And you were like, better rats than spirits. And I was like, is it though?
Okay, fine. We could touch on it briefly because I think that's all it should need. Yeah, I did make a note of that too. She's like, oh, please God, don't let it be rats. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know. Rats? Oh.
And I made a joke about it, then you actually started standing up for it. Like, there is a difference.
Dude, I don't know. You just get some salt.
Rats versus deadly spirits trying to kill your children.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Children.
Well, okay, take children out of it. I feel like I'd rather deal with a spirit.
I was trying to.
I'd rather take on a spirit. I think I got 15 seasons of Supernatural under my belt. I think I can take care of this.
Really?
Spirit versus
really.
versus some rats, man. I'm
Spirit
not about that rat
using
life.
juice and rearranging items in the refrigerator
No.
to try and kill a whole family.
Stop it.
No way, man. This is not even close.
You know, that does bring up a story I remember hearing about Jensen Ackles. He apparently was like staying in some hotel and somehow he got locked out of his room. I don't remember the circumstances around it. Maybe his key wasn't working. I can't remember. And he went to go get help, or he called for help or whatever, and it was taking a really, really long time. And I think he was like really tired. It was really late and he had to get up early or something. And he might have been drunk. I don't know. For some unknown reason, he decided that as his experience with being Dean, he's good at kicking in doors. So he just kicked the door in.
Career felon.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I don't know. I want to know more about that because I'm like, that's like a lot. You just kicked in a door at a hotel, my guy. But I feel like there's more to the story or something, but it is hey, I've watched 15 seasons, or I've played this character for 15 seasons. I could do this.
What are they going to do? Fire me?
No, it's not about that. It's about like having the quote unquote experience. Yeah. Except for that all of those doors that he's kicked in as Dean are rigged. Like they are specialty doors so that they are able to be kicked in. Kicking in a door for real is a lot harder than that.
This is suspicious. Very suspicious activity.
Whatever. What are you drawing over there, boobs?
No, what in the world are you talking about? That is a smiley face, you weirdo.
That is not a smiley face.
That is a smiley face.
But there's
smile.
But there's
here.
But why is there like boob
Clover?
Yeah, I guess.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
I don't know, man. It looks like boobs.
It's you. All right, so what are we doing next week? We've got
is it Asylum?
Scarecrow.
I think it's Asylum.
I think it's Scarecrow.
Asylum is next.
It's 110. That's what I said. Asylum.
Asylum's next. It's a good one.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, all of the next three are really good.
You mentioned that.
I haven't looked beyond that. It might be good ones after that too, but yeah, Asylum, Scarecrow, and Faith, all very good.
Good. So that puts us out, 1 week from today. We'll do Asylum. And apparently we've got a good couple of weeks, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about the next ones. Anything else on predictions we've already talked about?
Oh, yeah. Well, what do you think Asylum's going to be?
Oh, that's right. I have to do that. Oh, I went back and checked my prediction about Dead in the Water, and I was so not close on that one. So I'm so glad I get to keep trying to do this. Asylum.
Your brother loves it.
I know he does. Asylum is about... Okay, so they're randomly driving across the country. They find out about this issue that's going on in a city called Gotham. And so they drive, and it only takes 2 hours to drive from California to Gotham. Because there's spirits in the asylum. See what I did there? And they're making people go crazy and commit crimes. So that's my Asylum theory.
Okay. And I just quickly looked up like what's coming up next, like after Asylum, Scarecrow, and Faith. Honestly, the rest of this season is pretty like amazing.
We're at 9. Wow, that's like 14 episodes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like there's maybe one in there that I am kind of about, but
it's kind of crazy for season 1. It usually takes like 2,
the rest
3 or 4.
of them, I mean,
yeah, okay.
There's some good ones in there.
Well, then let's get to it.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of work to do.
Well, if we have a lot of work to do, we better get in the car. Just remember, driver picks the music.
And shotgun shuts his K-Cole.
Woo!
All right, well then let's go do the next one, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Okay, bye.